Freshly married, a couple faces the unanticipated duty of caring for a child who is paralyzed. A baby, just 6 months old and unable to move, seemed to be left without hope until a stray dog entered his life. But what this stray dog did next will leave you speechless and might even restore your faith in miracles. The story of a paralyzed boy and a stray dog begins here. One quiet afternoon, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Tom, absorbed in his office project, barely noticed. Grace, just home from a long nursing shift, was settling into the couch. The doorbell rang again, more urgently this time. Tom sighed, pushing himself away from his work. He opened the door to a scene that would change their lives forever. A young woman stood there, clutching a tiny baby wrapped in a worn blue blanket. Her eyes, swollen from crying, met his with desperation. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I can't care for him anymore. He's yours now." Before Tom could respond, she placed the baby in his arms, handed him a crumpled note, and hurried away. "Wait!" Tom called, stepping onto the porch, but the woman had already disappeared around the corner. Grace appeared behind him, her face a mixture of confusion and concern. "What's going on?" Tom handed her the note. They read the scribbled words together. "I know he'll be safe with you." The baby, whom they would name Oliver, wasn't like other infants. Doctors soon informed them that he had a rare condition that left him paralyzed from the waist down. The news overwhelmed them. Tom and Grace were thrust into a world of therapies, medical appointments, and uncertainties. Grace cried quietly at night, wondering if they could handle this. Tom masked his doubts, but often stared into the dark, questioning if they were enough. Then, one morning, their little puppy, Charlie, changed everything. Charlie, a bundle of energy and mischief, had a knack for sensing emotions. That day, he wandered into Oliver's room while the baby napped. Suddenly, Charlie barked, sharp and insistent. "Charlie!" Grace called, rushing in with Tom right behind her. They froze. Charlie stood on his hind legs, his tiny paws on Oliver's crib, gently nudging the baby's hand. Oliver's big eyes sparkled as he looked at the puppy, and then, for the first time, he laughed. It wasn't just a sound, it was pure, unfiltered joy that filled the room and their hearts. Tears streamed down Grace's face as she knelt by the crib, while Tom wrapped an arm around her. In that moment, the weight they carried seemed to lift. Oliver wasn't a burden, he was their blessing. His laughter reminded them of the beauty in unexpected moments. That night, as they held Oliver close and Charlie curled up at their feet, they realized their family wasn't what they had planned. It was something even better. Sometimes life's greatest gifts come wrapped in challenges, with a puppy by your side to show you the way. Grace and Tom Miller stood frozen in their living room, holding the letter that had just changed their lives. The handwriting was shaky, the words desperate but filled with hope. The woman had chosen them. She knew Grace was a nurse, a kind, capable person who could give her baby the care he needed. The letter explained everything. Oliver, born just 3 months ago, was paralyzed from the waist down. The young mother had no family to turn to. Her child's father had abandoned them the moment he learned of the boy's condition. It wasn't her fault, yet everyone around her seemed to treat her as if it were, as though giving birth to a paralyzed child made her unworthy, broken, or even cursed. She had tried to be strong, but the burden was too heavy. Her heart ached with guilt as she wrote those words, admitting she could no longer meet her baby's needs. She needed time to take care of herself. Through her tears, she apologized and expressed her belief that Tom and Grace could offer the love and care her son so desperately deserved. The letter revealed something else. The woman had seen Grace during her hospital stay. Grace had been the nurse who comforted her when she was scared and alone, the one who treated her with kindness when she needed it most. That small act of compassion had stayed with her, becoming her only ray of hope. Next to the letter was another document, one granting Tom and Grace custody of the baby, but there was no birth certificate, No name, no way to trace the young mother. She had vanished, leaving behind a tiny life she trusted the Millers to protect. Tom and Grace exchanged stunned glances, their hearts pounding with disbelief and uncertainty. They read the letter again, then again, as if trying to convince themselves it was real. Slowly, Grace's nurturing instincts took over. She reached for Oliver, who was fussing softly in his blanket, and held him close. "It's okay, little one," she whispered, her voice trembling but soothing. "You're safe now." In that moment, they both knew their lives had changed forever. They couldn't let an innocent child suffer, not when he needed them more than ever. The days that followed were chaotic and exhausting. Oliver required urgent care to assess his condition. Grace, determined to give him the best start, took leave from work to stay home with him. The sleepless nights and endless diaper changes became their new normal, but the Millers didn't complain. Oliver was their unexpected blessing, and they quickly fell in love with his sweet smile and tiny hands that clung to them for comfort. Weeks later, their attorney confirmed that the adoption could proceed. The birth mother could not be found, but her signed agreement allowed them to officially make Oliver their son. Grace often thought about the young woman. She felt deep empathy for her and hoped, perhaps selfishly, that she might one day return to see Oliver again. But for now, they were his parents. Life seemed to settle into a routine. It was a chilly autumn morning when Grace saw a scruffy little puppy in their backyard. Its fur was tangled and it shivered as it pressed against the garden fence. It looked lost and scared. "Oh, you poor thing," Grace said softly, crouching down. She held out her hand, speaking gently until the puppy took a hesitant step forward. Without another thought, she scooped it into her arms and carried it inside. Tom looked up, surprised. "Grace, are you sure about this? We already have so much going on." Grace hugged the puppy closer. "Tom, look at him. He needs us." Tom sighed but agreed to take the puppy to the vet. The veterinarian confirmed that the puppy, now named Charlie, was a stray. Aside from a minor illness, he was healthy. At first, Charlie was nervous around people. He followed Grace everywhere, but he barked and growled at Tom. What worried them most was how restless Charlie became whenever Grace held Oliver. "We can't keep him if he's going to act like this," Tom said one night, frustration clear in his voice. "It's not safe for Oliver." "Let's give him more time," Grace replied. "He's been through a lot." A few mornings later, Tom decided to take Charlie for a walk. The cold air was refreshing, and Charlie seemed calmer by the end of it. By the time they returned home, he was wagging his tail and nudging Tom's hand for attention. Seeing this gave the couple hope. Maybe in time, Charlie would bond with Oliver too. Life became busy and exhausting. Grace juggled her hospital shifts with late-night feedings, while Tom adjusted his schedule to help at home. Oliver needed extra care for his condition, and Charlie craved attention, filling the house with his playful energy. Their families helped when they could, but the couple was often on their own. Charlie became protective, barking at visitors as if guarding his new family. Despite the chaos, there were moments of pure joy. Oliver's sweet laughter and Charlie's antics brought light to their hardest days. Then, one evening, things took a frightening turn. After a long day, Grace noticed that Oliver was unusually warm. His fever didn't go down, and she panicked. "We need to take him to the hospital," she told Tom. At the hospital, they waited anxiously. Grace clung to Tom's hand, her heart racing. Finally, the doctor came in with news that left them stunned. "Oliver's condition is rare, but it's temporary," the doctor said. "With proper care, he may regain movement in his legs." Tears filled Grace's eyes. "You mean he'll walk again?" The doctor nodded. "It will take time, but it's possible. Keep doing what you're doing. You're already giving him amazing care." Overwhelmed with relief, Grace and Tom held each other tightly. From that day on, hope became their strength. They worked tirelessly to care for Oliver, and Charlie seemed to sense the change. The once nervous puppy grew inseparable from the baby. He stayed close, watching over him as if he understood their journey together. One day, while they played in the living room, Charlie barked excitedly at Oliver. Grace turned to see what had caught his attention and gasped, "Tom, look at him!" Oliver was pushing himself up, his arms trembling with effort. He reached for Charlie, his face lit with determination. In that moment, the world fell away. All that mattered was the connection between them. Charlie seemed to understand, rushing forward to nuzzle Oliver's cheek. It was as if the puppy knew he was part of something bigger, part of a family that needed each other. Days turned into weeks, and their lives transformed. With therapy, dedication, and love, Oliver slowly regained movement. The joy of seeing him take his first unsteady steps filled their hearts with hope. Grace and Tom watched in awe as Oliver took a few steps, laughing with glee as Charlie ran circles around him, barking with encouragement. It was a moment they would never forget. Then, just when they thought their family was complete, the doorbell rang again. This time, Grace answered it, and her heart raced. Standing there was a young woman, familiar yet different. She was the one from before, the one who had left Oliver on their doorstep. "I'm sorry to intrude," she said, her voice trembling. "I wanted to see him." Grace felt a rush of emotions, fear, anxiety, and a twinge of anger. "You left him. How could you just disappear?" The young woman nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know I did. I was scared, but I never stopped thinking about him." Before Grace could respond, Oliver cooed from the living room. The woman's expression shifted, a blend of love and heartbreak. "Can I?" she began, hesitantly stepping inside. Tom stood protectively by Grace's side, uncertainty written on his face. "We've taken care of him," he said firmly. "I know, and I'm grateful. I just want to see him," the young woman pleaded, her voice breaking. Grace's heart ached. She remembered the letter, the desperation of a mother wanting to do what was best for her child. She looked at Oliver, who giggled as Charlie licked his face. "Okay," she said softly, stepping aside. "You can see him." As the woman approached, Oliver reached out his tiny arms. Grace watched in awe as the young mother held her baby for the first time in months. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered words of love and apology. Tom put an arm around Grace. "We'll always be here for him," he said quietly. And so, their family grew in unexpected ways. Grace and Tom learned that love knows no boundaries, and sometimes miracles happen in the most unexpected forms. Through laughter, tears, and shared moments, they built a life that celebrated the beauty of resilience and the power of connection. Every day became a reminder that family isn't just defined by blood. It's forged in the bonds we create, the love we share, and the miracles we welcome into our lives.